Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Sustainability Around the World webcast, monthly webcast. Today is 30 January 2024, and we are in the first webcast of the year. And as you can see, I'm not your usual and favorite host. Pretty evident, I'm not Chris. Unfortunately, for some personal reasons, he could not join us today. However, we decided that we really wanted to deliver this episode, so he gave me his blessing to take over, but only for this month, I promise. So sustainability around the world will take us this month in another country. This time we are in Belgium, in the beautiful Leuven, which is known for the beer production. But today we will stop in another location in KU Leuven University, as today we have our guest, Pieter Verboven, researcher and technology transfer leader. Welcome, Pieter.
Welcome. Thank you, Ayla. Well, it's a nice crowd we see here. It's the most diverse and international crowd I've had so far, I think.
Thank you very much for accepting our invitation. It's a great honor to have you here today and to talk to our international audience of chefs. As you say, it's pretty diverse. We have chefs here joining from everywhere. I see Jamaica, Cyprus, India, Turkey, Singapore, so basically everywhere. So actually today the topic we're going to talk, sustainable refrigeration, it's a topic that in our 2 years of sustainability around the world, we have not explored it as much, let's say. So my first question for you would be to maybe give us a general introduction of what is sustainable refrigeration, and maybe for our own curiosity, why you chose to dedicate your research skills to this specific issue.
Okay, thank you. So I'm Pieter Verboven. I'm from University of Leuven, where I'm a research manager on developing technologies to keep quality of foods as good as possible after we have produced them, so that they can reach you in the best condition at your restaurants where you start working with them. Refrigeration is an essential element there, of course, because most of the foods are perishable, which means that they would decay quite fast if we don't control their temperature. If we lower the temperature, then all these processes that will lead to the decay and the deterioration will be highly reduced. So keeping a refrigerated food supply chain is essential for maintaining the quality throughout the journey of the product from where it's produced to where you will use it. This can be several days, but sometimes it's several months before the product reaches you to work with.
Mm-hmm. How do sustainable refrigeration technology currently influence the industry? Like, is it for the moment a hot topic, or what do you think?
Yeah, so refrigeration, of course, it's receiving attention because, of course, it is one of those technologies that is consuming energy.
Mm-hmm.
And energy means, if you consume energy, mostly that means you're emitting CO2. Now, whether it is the electricity is being produced in a fossil fuel electricity production plant, or by other means, by maybe the loss of refrigerant in your refrigeration conditions. So you're contributing through refrigeration, you're kind of contributing to CO2 emissions, and that's why it is high on the agenda to look at more sustainable refrigeration technologies. But of course, the first aim of refrigeration, and we need it, I think we need to continue using refrigeration because it's essential for quality preservation and safety aspects, of course, of products. If we don't use refrigeration, we will have a lot of loss of product after it has been produced, and it will cause even larger emissions. So refrigeration, we should regard as one of the means to help reduce actually losses, and as that, the impact on the environment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So how do this eco-friendly concept, so eco-friendly refrigeration, contributes to preserving both the flavor and the texture of ingredients throughout the cold chain?
Yeah, that's a very broad question, I must say. So Everything starts with what I just said is temperature. So products will decay if the temperature is not maintained on the right level. And that is unfortunately maybe dependent on the type of product. One product requires another temperature level than another. If the temperature is too low, you will also induce problems with it. You might start to have internal decay because of the damage of the too low temperatures. So every product on its own has certain requirements. So that's something we will have to work with while designing refrigeration equipment and designing, for instance, transport modalities to make sure that we're not putting products into the wrong condition. That's where it starts. Now, in order to create those conditions, we use refrigeration machines, and they rely on refrigerants that are able to cool the environment in which they are being used. But most of these in the past have been synthetic refrigerants, as we call them, and they have been optimized to produce very efficient refrigeration machines. The only drawback of these refrigerants is that when they start to leak, that they contribute a lot to global warming, because these are gases that will absorb a lot of heat, and when they get into the atmosphere, they are a major contributor to global warming potential. And that's why we are moving to eco-friendly refrigerants. That doesn't really impact the machine as such, the refrigeration unit that you use as such, and it's more the responsibility of the producer of the equipment to replace these refrigerants with more eco-friendly refrigerants. And we see that process is going on. And most of the equipment, I think, that they use in restaurant facilities in countries like in Europe, you see that transformation rapidly happening. So that the more synthetic, old-fashioned, let's say, refrigerants are being more and more replaced by these refrigerants. But that doesn't mean that a chef or a manager of a restaurant cannot do something himself as well to help with sustainable refrigeration. And the first is to understand your process, to know which refrigeration levels you need for your products, and then also to understand your equipment. Is the equipment performing in the way that you want it to do? So does it reach the temperature that you want? What about fluctuations that are happening? Is the equipment sufficiently insulated? Do you have leaks of the cold escaping from the refrigerant? These are all things that you could help with yourself to reduce the energy consumption actually of the machine, and thereby contributing to more sustainable operation of refrigeration throughout.
Perfect. So know the process, control the leaking, and know the whole process of preserving the food. Personally, myself, as a agri student, I had the chance to explore the refrigeration rooms of both meat and cheese. So my question, I don't know, it's like, are they the same thing? For example, in a kitchen, they cannot have two refrigeration rooms, but can they use the same environments for both veggies and meat, for example?
Yeah, that is always a bit a problem, because one product, even if you talk about products like vegetables, each individual type of vegetable might have totally opposing requirements than another one. So that has to do with their inherent properties and how they decay in certain conditions and how sensitive they are to certain conditions. And particularly if you would look at fruit and vegetables, they are very sensitive to a gas called ethylene that is being produced by the products themselves, but some are much more sensitive to it than others. So it's essential that you realize as an end user as well, which ones are sensitive to it and which ones are not. And so if you're able to have refrigeration equipment that can be compartmentalized or that can be separated, then you can work with what we call product categories, where you could have the sensitive products separated from the non-sensitive products. Secondly, on the level of temperature, there's also a distinction here, like more tropical fruit, they are much more temperature sensitive than fruits that come from regions like from Belgium, where we are producing apples and pears and such. They are much more tolerant to low temperatures, and they actually require much lower temperatures. But bananas or mangoes and so on, you shouldn't keep them at the same temperature as fruit, as other fruit. So a little bit of knowledge about that can help you already in designing the way that you have organize your storage facilities. And of course, it's also a bit making compromises, I think. Yeah. So, but in essentially, you need to know a little bit about what are the particular requirements and how you can deal with that within the context that you are operating, without having to go to large investments for every product specific conditions, etc. Of course, that is not possible. Some things can also be accommodated by appropriate packaging, let's say, so that you protect your product with an additional packaging, and then it can still be placed together with other products in the same refrigeration condition, of course.
Does those machines, like eco-friendly refrigeration, come out in the market with a higher price, or not necessarily? Like, is it affordable?
No, that's not necessarily. So we're involved in a large-scale initiative in Europe to actually outline what are the technologies out there for making refrigeration more sustainable. And we have been looking at more than 60 technologies so far. And some of those are not some of them are really fancy new technologies that will only appear in the market maybe in 5 years from now, so that are still in very early development stages, and we don't know yet what they're going to cost and what their actual benefits are going to be. But some of them are very easy things to implement, like, for instance, better control of your refrigeration machine. So measure your temperature in your refrigeration environment and check it with the settings of your control panel and see if that matches, and learn from that and try to adjust on that. Things like fans that are operating in cold rooms, do they need to be turned on all the time? Because fans are major energy consumers. About 1/3 of your energy consumption of a small refrigeration room will be attributed to the fan that is continuously running to distribute the cold, of course. It doesn't need to be running continuously and at the speed that it is running. So these are very simple things to do that will cost you nothing. But that can be maybe with the help with a refrigeration technician that is helping you with installation. You can really make a difference without having to do too much of investment. And we're trying to put those technologies on a map where we see, okay, this is what the cost of the equipment is. What is the payback period? Is it short term, 1 year or less? Is it more than 5 years, or is there no? Sometimes there's no payback period. And then on the second axis, we look at what is the impact in terms of the emissions. So that way, and we're going to distribute that soon, I think. Those maps that you can see, okay, this technology has high impact in terms of reducing emissions. And it is very cheap to implement, so it helps you to select where you could yourself make a difference.
To see it a bit from the perspective of chefs, what they care most about is the sensory experience of the food. So my question here would be, what are the benefits or the challenges related to maintaining optimal food quality, but also taste related to sustainable refrigeration practices? Yeah. Do they have a relation or?
So, as I said, well, products are typically produced or harvested at one point, and they will take some time to reach the chef. And ideally, the chef is closely positioned with its suppliers so that he manages a bit the quality, he knows what he's buying, and he keeps the supply chains short. But if that is not the case, then the supply chains become longer and you will have less and less control over it. And that's where, well, where we are active in to try to help the industry of food supply to offer them tools so that they can see how the quality evolves, understand what are the factors that they can use to affect the quality, including sensory, what are tools to measure it, and what are tools to control it. So we invest a lot of effort in trying to produce those tools, and some of those things are still, many of those things are not known, but for certain aspects it is very well known and still not considered too much. So there's also a responsibility for us, of course, to raise awareness of which tools are available to do these things, and provide actually solutions to the market that can help chefs. Yeah, I think a chef knows very well how sensitive a product is to certain conditions and how things are going to change if those conditions are not maintained well. And things that you can do around refrigeration is you can look at packaging, you can look at humidity, controlling humidity and so on. All these factors will start to affect how the product is going to evolve, because we have to realize most of the products are still living entities. Yeah, they continue to use compounds within them, sugars, to transform, and they're doing respiration, so they use oxygen and are producing CO2. And so it's much like you have to try to understand the food and how it behaves even after it has been harvested or produced. So and okay, from one product to another, there might be very different factors that play a role, and that makes it difficult, of course, to manage everything.
A curiosity question, actually, that is occurring to me now is like, in your work as a research leader, do you have interaction with chefs directly, or you are more like in the background researching the refrigerations that then they can have it in the market, or you also need to interact with them to maybe understand better their needs in a way?
Yeah, so like we often get questions like the one you asked before about when you have different products, how do you deal with it in terms of refrigeration? And then we try to understand the specific situation and try to help the client in this case with searching for solutions. So that's why what we are here for. And often they're not market ready solutions, and we will have to start developing very specific things for very specific questions. But okay, that's what we like to do, of course, as engineers, and that's also where our expertise is. But everything starts with very simple things. Measure things that you can measure, like temperature and humidity, and understand. Measure some properties of product like weight loss, the appearance, make a judgment about it, and then try to understand how these factors relate. That is always the first step in trying to get more improved things.
Another question that I would like to ask you is, what role can chefs play in advocating and influencing the adaptation of this sustainable refrigeration philosophy?
Yeah, of course, we could see them. So maybe I should put that in the framework of consumers. And so the consumer, and so I mean the normal consumer that is using the products in their homes. That's often where a lot of losses still occur, as we have seen. So we can do a lot of things in the whole supply chain, during transport, during storage, distribution, at retail, and because there we have the means maybe to bring in technology. And at the consumer end, often that is more difficult, and it's something you don't have control over, because every consumer follows his own rules a little bit, so a lot of losses occur there. But you could regard chefs as being maybe the top advocates of how you should work with food in a kitchen, and in that role, I think Acidi could be a real good advocate of proper management of quality of products that could be maybe then be picked up by consumers, because they often reflect themselves towards chefs, of course.
It's good to mention actually, because for other parts, for example, if they're choosing like sustainable veggies or like seasonal ingredients, it's much easier to also promote it with the clients. This part of refrigeration, it's a bit more technical, so it's not directly like they cannot directly maybe announce it in their promotion or communication campaigns, but it's still something important for them to have in the back of their hand. That this thing is also costing like pollution.
Refrigeration is something very simple. It's about how you understand your refrigerator, because the top of your refrigerator generally is warmer, the bottom is colder. There are different compartments. Which products do you typically put on which level in the refrigerator? And there are very simple things that you can communicate about refrigeration and the appropriate use of refrigeration. So.
A question that just came now to my mind is, maybe this does not have a very precise response, but you are mentioning basically two things. You are saying techniques, ways like check the temperature, check the leaking, etc., know your product, but also those eco-friendly devices that are being created and produced every day with the new technology. So which has the more influence, or they just walk together?
We have kind of a roadmap that if you are concerned about sustainable refrigeration, we are advising you to follow a certain roadmap to implement. And on that roadmap, we have eight points. And the first point is you have to start now. Well, everybody has to start now. We all know the issue of global warming, and everybody in its own means can contribute to that. So you have to start thinking about what is the impact of refrigeration in my context on global warming. So you're using refrigeration, so you are using electricity to do that. Are there ways that you think of that you can reduce the energy consumption of your refrigeration? Just that idea alone is the first step. And then the second step is, how can I optimize the use of my equipment? And that's we've discussed a few of those items already before. And then if you're going to replace outdated equipment, consider buying more energy efficient equipment. It doesn't have to necessarily cost more. And there are nowadays these energy labels that will guide you through the process. On average now, if you look at refrigerated cabinets, the average energy class is now CD on a scale from A to G, so somewhere in the middle. We need to bring that all upward towards, on average, B class levels. So purchasing more energy efficient equipment is the next step. And then consider using, of course, renewable energy sources to produce your electricity yourself or through the grid. That is then more a country responsibility to make more sustainable energy supply. And then only at that point start thinking about these new technologies. So all what I've said so far is using available technology, using available knowledge. Very simple things, simple reasoning can help you already a lot in trying to make savings. And then we can start thinking about, are new technologies at all useful to get incorporated? So that's how we see a roadmap towards making things more energy efficient. And if we do that all together, we can make a difference from now to 2050, contributing probably in the food service context, 50% of what we need to do, we can do by doing that. So we don't
Perfect.
need to start replacing things, just managing what we have in a proper way. We can do a lot of savings already.
It's very great that the first steps are actually working over the equipments we have. Like we don't really need to renovate and buy a new one to be sustainable. But my last question is, instead, in the case that some of the chefs would like to invest on that, can you share some tips of are there any specification tips or consideration that you would offer to them while selecting a new equipment?
New equipment should be, of course, first of all, it should be performant, of course. It should produce the conditions that you want. And the temperature is the first one. And the new technology might be more performant in controlling the temperature more accurately over time, so that you have less fluctuations, because the fluctuations, that is what is going to cause your weight loss and the deterioration. It could also be spatial inhomogeneity, so appliances that have been designed and have been demonstrated to give more uniform conditions are the ones you should select for. And then secondly, of course, it is on the supply end, how much energy does the equipment produce, but according to the newest regulations, you can rely on these energy labels to make your selection based on that. And then concerning the really new technologies, and then I'm talking about not using refrigerants, but alternative refrigeration technologies. There are new technologies out there like acoustic refrigeration, magnetic refrigeration. These are very high-end technologies. They are not ready for market yet. I think their readiness level is too low. Well, as soon as they will be available, and they are being tested on actual applications and so on today, so it shouldn't be too far in the future. But if they are, the thing with those technologies is, do they produce the capacity that you need, and are they affordable? Yeah? So that are things that we still need to clear out before we can give proper advice on the use of them, the practical use of them in real life conditions. So for the time being, switching to more energy efficient equipment with refrigerants that are eco-friendly, that is the way to go.
Perfect. I have a question from our audience saying heat pumps are becoming very popular in Canada instead of air conditioners. Could this be implemented as a sustainable way?
Yeah, so now we're talking about HVAC applications, which we didn't really talk about yet, but that is a good point. So there's a lot of refrigeration also, not only for the food, but also for the comfort of the clients in the restaurants. And heat pumps, yes, that is of course a very good way to make your HVAC system more sustainable. And also more and more we're looking into technologies like heat recovery. So you have to realize, if you're refrigerating something, you're also producing heat. Yeah, so there's always two sides. So there's always a balance. So the heat, what we do nowadays in refrigeration, whether it is for HVAC or for food cooling, we are producing heat and we're just wasting it into the environment. But we're looking more and more into recovering that heat to make it useful, either to provide heating, direct heating, or to heat water and things like that. Yeah. And we see that there is very large potential for that. In retail, we see things happening in this area, and more we see it also in food service and so on, that could be made a lot of benefit by looking at those technologies.
That's great. I think our time is up, but I have one last question who says it's from a person called Wanda, and it's asking, is there maybe one last important tip you can share with our students that are watching from Kaza, Azerbaijan, related with refrigeration and sustainability? So apparently we have some students watching us as a group, maybe from Azerbaijan, and they would like a last tip from your side.
Okay, so realize it's all about quality. Quality comes first. So work with quality ingredients and know what conditions they require if you have to refrigerate them. If we don't have the right conditions for maintaining quality, we will have a lot of food losses, and those will have much larger impact than the refrigeration technology themselves. So start with that.
Perfect. And Peter, what is for the moment in your plate? Like, what are you, if you can share some details of your last researches that you are working on, like, where is the future going for the moment?
Yeah, okay, thanks for that question. So one of the things that is close to our hearts are fruit and vegetables and how we maintain their quality after they have been picked. And many of those are stored for a long period before they are sold to end customers. So controlling those conditions, which is not only about temperature in that case, it's also by particular gases like oxygen, CO2, and ethylene. We are developing now tools that we can predict how products are going to behave in certain conditions and combine that with measurements in the real conditions so that we know what the shelf life of the product is going to be. So that, for instance, if a chef buys apples from a supplier, that he can also inform the chef about, if you store them in this condition, you're going to be able to maintain their quality with this level for so long a time left. Or if you buy these apples, then you're going to have only so much shelf life. So we're developing tools that can help in decision making on which supply of product to buy and or sell, depending on who is the customer of this technology. And we see a lot of benefit about that because so far this has been a black box environment basically that relies on the experience of who's buying or who's selling the product. We try to give them tools that make a more objective decision about it.
That's really like a huge invention. Let's say for the chefs, would be great to go to do their like store groceries and to realize that they can know so much about the product that they're buying. Like that would clearly make
and
a
with
difference.
easy tools that you can operate maybe even on your smartphone, so that you can directly have an idea about
Wow.
the quality and how it is going to evolve. So that's things that are in the pipeline for the future.
Well, I hope that when this thing it's concrete in a final product, we will have the chance to maybe have you again when you can share more about this and to talk further. As for today, I'm very happy to have you here. Thank you again for accepting and for sharing your valuable knowledges about this topic. Thank you.
It was my pleasure.
And to all the chefs that are following us from everywhere, thank you for joining. Next month, we will meet again in another episode. We'll keep a bit secret what will happen next month, but I can promise you will be same interesting as today. So stay tuned and see you next month. Goodbye.
Bye.